Hello, greetings, happy Saturday. It's a beautiful day. Said it was going to be some type of winter storm, and it's sunny and beautiful today, so that's delightful. What's new? What's new around town? Clementine's getting very big, and that's fun. And we have chickens, and the chickens are doing great, and they're very fun as well. Lots of fun farmyard activities. But today we want to talk about the upcoming class of Awareness School, which we're doing a morning session this round. Because a lot of times our typical time that we do Awareness School meetings, it's a 10-week class, and we recently have been doing it at 5 p.m. Pacific time, which is difficult for people in European time zones to attend. And so this one is the one time, at least we know for sure this year, that we'll be doing a morning class. And so classes will be on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time, starting April 16th. And so if you've been wanting to join and you were in a time zone where you haven't been able to, now's your time. And today we wanted to talk about the world of the mind. And that's really what we navigate, what Awareness School is all about, is navigating and optimizing what it is to be in this world created by the mind, and how to navigate and experience life in a way that feels good more of the time, feels bad less of the time. You feel as though you're actively engaged in all of the things that are important to you and feel good.
Yeah, so pretty much we're going to be telling you about Awareness School in this video, but as usually, describing Awareness School kind of turns into its own little lesson. So pretty much the way the format works is Awareness School, if you think about it, sits up here, and it sort of consists of something called the Every Bit of Life course, and then also group coaching. So when we say Awareness School, we're referring to a combination of something called the Every Bit of Life course and then weekly meetings where we get together. And in the weekly meetings, what do? We in theory, we talk about the stuff from the course, but really for the most part, we're talking about stuff that's going on with you, stuff that comes up with you as a result of what you're learning in the course and what you're applying in the course. Sometimes it's just what comes up with you when you're in the course of taking the course, right? It's like, well, I had a fight with my partner, or this is going on, or I'm struggling with this, or here's something that worked really well for me. And so it's really about bringing those principles to life. The Every Bit of Life, so we got Awareness School up here, remember, we got the Every Bit of Life course, and we have group coaching. The Every Bit of Life course is basically a framework for building awareness. That's kind of how we think about it. It's a model of how your mind works. That means that it's just a kind of a neat way of describing the many things that go on in the mind. It's simple enough to be useful, comprehensive enough to also be useful and to cover the bases. I'm not saying it's the way it is, it's just a very useful framework for building awareness. So pretty much we just go through, in the course, the various things that the mind does. Now the purpose of that is, one, so that you can kind of start to learn about those things in kind of a conscious way. And the other thing is that it gives you, sorry, I've got
This happens during Awareness School sometimes, as we have
the dogs will be
the dogs doing what dogs do, and causing slight interruptions.
Should I just continue?
Yeah, continue on.
So kind of a framework for building awareness, because the one thing about awareness practice is that it's a little nebulous, it's a little sort of vague. I mean, what do I do? People want something to do. That'd be great if you could you go locate somewhere else? I see you. Off you go. There we go. Okay. She likes to hover right over the power switch when we have the computer out here, so we're constantly in a state of, is she going to flip the switch and end the session? A framework for developing awareness, because awareness work can seem so vague, especially in the beginning, and people want something that they can take action on. Tell me what to do. I mean, I'm watching my mind. What does that even mean? I need some action that I can take. The Every Bit of Life course gives you specific things to pay attention to. Watch what you're focusing on. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Observe your behaviors. Observe the connections that exist between how you're feeling and how you behave, the results that you get. And it sort of gives you kind of like it's almost like the little gutter guard things. If you ever go bowling and you're really bad at it, or if you're a child, they put the things in the side so that the ball can't go in the gutter. You're still kind of developing the skills of bowling, but you've got the little assistance of the guardrails to keep you from going kind of too far out to the side so it's not fun anymore. That's kind of how the course functions. When it comes to developing the awareness. Now, there are skills and techniques that you learn in the Every Bit of Life course that are inherently beneficial. I think sometimes we give the course a little bit short shrift because we've grown to put so much emphasis on the power of your awareness that the course is just a means to an end to developing it. But in fact, there are a lot of skills in the course that people find extremely useful. And so we're teaching you sort of a strategy for operating your mind more resourcefully. But what we're really actually doing is, in the course of that, facilitating kind of the activation and the expansion of your awareness. You might think about it like this, like if you go to the gym and I teach you to do pull-ups, or I'm teaching you to perform a deadlift, or I'm teaching you, I don't know, the right way to run on the treadmill, whatever. What are we doing? Well, we are learning to do those activities, but what are we actually doing? Well, we're actually developing muscular strength, we're developing the muscle, we're developing the nervous system's connection to the muscle, developing the cardiovascular system. So the actual exercise that you're learning, that's kind of like the stuff in the course, but the cultivation of this awareness, that's the development of that kind of innate property. That's the strength, that's the fitness, that's the thing that's going to allow you not to be kind of a course-taking, rule-following personal growth robot, but to actually just pay attention to what's going on in your mind and in your life, and to accurately assess what's happening in a way that allows you to sort of respond resourcefully to it, so that you can start creating the things that you want instead of creating things that you don't want. And even when, things that you don't want happen, it tends to be less of a mystery to you why those things are going on. If you've ever found yourself in a situation where I just don't know why I keep fighting with my partner. I just don't know why I keep binge eating these cookies. I just don't know why I say I'm not going to do this and then I end up, self-sabotaging, or I end up quitting right before it's about to pay off, or I talk myself into a bad situation or out of a good one, whatever. It's just mysterious. I don't know why I do it. That to me indicates there's a lot of unconscious mental activity, unconscious mechanical autopilot style mental activity that's happening. As you become aware of those processes that are occurring, the results that you are getting that you do not want will stop being so mysterious, right? So that, if you think about like the scale of life, it's like ideally I'm getting what I want, and I know why I'm getting what I want, right? So what's happening is what I want to have happen, and I know why that's the thing that's happening, right? A step down from that would be I'm getting what I want, but I'm not sure why I'm getting it, so I'm kind of nervous that I'm going to mess it up or it's not going to keep happening. Step down from that would then be I'm not getting what I want, but I know exactly why I'm not getting what I want, so I know what to change in order to get what I do want. You're mad at me. I don't want that, but I know why you're mad at me because I used that tone of voice because I said I would and then I didn't, or whatever, right? And then kind of the worst of all scenarios, though, I'm not getting what I want, or I'm getting what I don't want, and I don't know why. So what's happening is not what I want, and I don't know why that's happening. So I'm not only dealing with the consequences of what I don't want, I'm also frustrated, I'm also confused, I'm also perhaps feeling invitations to despair because life is mysteriously undesirable to me. My results are mysteriously undesirable. I don't see the connections that exist. So in the beginning, the best thing that we can do, you coming up here? This is really fun. Okay. This is, here we go. Here's Whirly, also known as Pearl. She likes to make appearances on these videos. Look here, sweetheart. Say hello.
Yes, you're so beautiful.
I know, darling. She doesn't have a concept, really, I guess is what we're doing. There you go. Come on up. We could put them away, but we choose not to for some reason. Whoop, whoop. Oh, look at that. Great. I thought the video was over. So she's been ejected from the premises for the time being. So a lot of people, they find themselves in the position, they're getting what they don't want, they don't know why, and so in the beginning, we start infusing awareness into the situation, and it's this wonderful thing that happens. Life becomes sort of like peaceful and okay, even though some of your life isn't the way you want it to be, because you're beginning to form a picture of how it is that things go about being the way that they are. And that includes you. You begin to form a picture. If you think that you're a not nice person and you sort of despair about that and you don't know how to be different, as you become more aware, you start to see exactly how you go about being what you call a not nice person. And you discover a lot of it probably is you beat yourself up a lot for being what you consider to be a not nice person. You observe the overall ecology of what it's like to be you consists of, what it's made of. And then you start to see obvious opportunities to change it, to optimize it. You free yourself from a lot of the unconscious, sort of invisible sources of unproductive tension and pressure that exist in your life. Start removing those inefficiencies, start creating kind of more a sense of it's not even creating, it's just allowing there to be a sense of peace and sort of equanimity right now. And then all of a sudden, you start to accumulate all of this surplus energy, and you also have sufficient awareness to know the optimal directions in which that energy can be channeled, which is very nice. And this is kind of just naturally the process that happens as you develop this awareness. You start to see where you're squandering energy and futility. You start to say, gosh, I'm focusing on what I don't want a lot. I sure am emotionally resisting this situation a lot. It's not getting me anything to resist that. And so the awareness of it over time just kind of like cauterizes that place where you're kind of leaking this psychic energy. You're sort of bleeding out, spiritually speaking, or mentally speaking. Seal that off. And then all of a sudden we're not leaking anymore. So we're building up this energy. We're building up it. Some of it's physical. It's certainly mental. And then the awareness also allows you to recognize more productive, more rewarding, more enriching areas that you can direct that energy. And so it's just this it's not that you don't have to do anything. And it's not that there isn't any effort required. But I don't know if you've ever had one of these days, you've gotten enough sleep, you aren't under tremendous pressure to do things, but you've got a nice open time, you've got lots of energy, you've got clarity about what you want to do, and you just kind of start doing stuff that you need to do. Oh, let's take care of that. Oh, and we'll go do this. And you're being productive and also having a nice time. Like everything's okay now, and you're also making progress in the direction that you want to go. That's kind of like the takeaway outcome that this course is designed to create for you. It's to make life like that, where everything's fine now, and I'm willing and able to do the work I need to do in order to head in the directions that I want to go, and I know exactly how to go about doing that work right now. So you facilitate that sense of kind of inner peace, you cultivate and then maintain that clarity, and then you're just moving resourcefully in desirable directions, and life becomes pretty fun.
Yeah, and that, that's like the power of a framework, a framework for understanding yourself and your experience. So someone asked a question recently. They're like, oh, why do I deal with jealousy? And they're like confused and uncertain about why this is a thing that is coming up. And in awareness school, we'd be able to kind of take that experience, jealousy, and trace it back into like the internal unconscious processes that lead to this emotion, this physical experience, this pang, this burn, this thing that comes up that you label with this word called jealousy. Where does it come from? And you're able to see, because of this sequence of unconscious processes, it leads to the outcome called jealousy. And it becomes like math. It becomes like, this is where this experience comes from. In order to feel this feeling, I must be unconsciously engaging in certain beliefs about myself. I must be valuing things in a certain way. I have to frame things and speak to myself and understand it through a certain lens in order to end up with this experience. And so it's like, instead of being like, oh gosh, I just deal with, a lot of jealousy and I feel this way a lot and kind of just my mind keeps coming back to it. It's being able to see, I know exactly where that's coming from and I know what to do in order to shift that experience if I want to. It's like taking the unconscious and autopilot programs of your mind off of autopilot and saying, this actually makes a whole lot of sense. And it's really cool the way, it's like with German medicine and understanding this framework for your health symptoms. It's like, it's really confusing and scary and weird if you have, a rash or phantom pains or your hair is falling out and you're just like, I don't know why this is happening. This is terrifying. This is awful, and it's confusing and scary. But it's like, actually there's a framework, there's a model for describing exactly what is causing, so the hair, it's the squamous epithelial layer, it's the ectoderm, it is caused by some type of separation conflict. And then you're like, at least you know what to work with. At that point, there's a lot more work to do in discovering what's the separation conflict that I'm dealing with. But at least you have this understanding of like, this is where I need to look. I need to look at self-devaluation or separation conflict or territory conflict. I need to figure out what this thing is in my life. And so that's where, a lot of people are, they come into this world because of their interest in German medicine and, just the awareness school and the awareness work for me came years before I ever came across German medicine. We were doing the work of the Ever Better Life course and of understanding where do my experiences come from. And so we focus in awareness school on experiences. And so we, obviously if you're studying German medicine on your own and you're like interested in, so if I'm having a self-devaluation, what aspects of perception have to be in order, have to be activated in my mind in order to devalue myself? And so it's very useful for people who are studying GNM and working with it and using it in their life. But just to be clear, it's not about GNM. Mm-hmm. It's not going to teach you the germ layers and that, that's I have my language of adaptation class and other classes that I direct people to like learn German New Medicine. This is for the person who wants to learn about their experience, which of course, you know, the model of German New Medicine kind of fits underneath that, but it's about experiences. Why do I feel jealous? Why do I devalue myself? How do I go about creating this ongoing experience of an identity conflict, of not knowing who I am? You know, these things have their home in the world of how you experience your reality. And when you can have a framework for understanding how that works, it's like, oh, okay, I know where to tinker. I know where to go to work. I know what could be shifted in order to change my experience. And it's all about being able to experiment, because a lot of times there's this futility. There's like, oh, I feel this way. I just feel this way. I don't know how to feel any other way. And I am controlled by my feelings. I'm controlled by my emotions. This gives you this whole area of leverage of like, oh, I could try this. I could look at this. I could, you know, figure out where this is coming from and why this, you know, perception is, you know, oh, I've never questioned that before. I've actually never stopped and questioned and looked at, why do I think this? Why do I believe this? Why do I feel this way? Where is this behavior coming from? Why did I just react that way to my partner? Why did I just say that? You know, and this allows you to have this ability to reflect upon your, you know, automatic programs that you just run every day and say, I think I can optimize that. I think that could be improved, simply because I like the experience of improving my experience. It's enjoyable to enjoy my time more, enjoy my partner more, enjoy, you know, just my moment to moment reality. Can I have more fun and experience more of the pleasurable emotions and experiences that I desire?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's letting go of problems, and I think also letting go of having a problem with the fact that problems sometimes occur. It's a little bit of both of those things. I think one of the things that's really interesting, and this is something that just really developing this. So now don't do this if this course is different probably than any course you've ever taken before. I would say certainly. A lot of people come, if they have personal growth experience, they think that they know what this is going to be like. It's not like that. It just isn't, you know. And people sometimes they like to come in. So one of the things I've noticed is that very often the part of the mind that needs to be changed the most is also the part of the mind that causes a person to enroll in a course like this. And so when that part of the mind is the part that gets you in it, and then it shows up and I say, you're the problem, all of a sudden it gets very uncomfortable. So this is one of those situations. This isn't like a situation where we get together and kind of discuss platitudes and everyone has something to talk about when they talk to all their other personal growth friends about how much personal growth stuff they do. It's not like that. It's very much kind of practical, no frills. Let's actually improve what it's like to be you kind of thing. One of the things that I find kind of just like super interesting about this, as you develop this ability to observe your mind, you start to recognize how much effort goes into being whatever way you are, you know. And if there's some way that you're being that isn't serving you, it doesn't feel good, or that's creating problems in your life, or that's causing you maybe to create an image of yourself that's unpleasant, and then causing you to emotionally resist that image and suffer over it. And, you know, I don't know, secretly hate yourself in private, but be super defensive in your interactions with other people. You know, it's kind of all these weird combinations of things people get stuck in. When you see how much effort goes into feeling bad about yourself, laziness can become this powerful force for positive change. Because that's one of the things that awareness makes you. It makes you very lazy when it comes to doing what does not serve you. I found this in my own life, is that I'll just look at the stuff that I used to do, getting really angry about this, or I don't know, getting all upset about that, or worrying about what might happen, or what somebody might think, or how this thing could go wrong, or whatever. And in my mind, I see it, I just kind of go, you know, because I've done it, and I know where that leads, and I've not done it. I know that, you know, nothing bad happens when I just don't do it. I think I'll just skip it. And that's a lot. I mean, there is a time and an effort to make, or a time and a place sort of to make attempts and make efforts and really, you know, get serious with yourself and be disciplined and all that. But the nice thing about awareness is that it helps you to have a healthy disinclination, a tendency to procrastinate, a tendency to be lazy when it comes to doing what doesn't serve you. Do you have to get angry at your husband right now? I mean, do you have to get upset about what your spouse said or didn't say just now? Do you have to, one of the things, like, honestly, like you will have these moments where you'll recognize an opportunity to get your feelings hurt. And you'll just go, And when you witness that and you see that that's the thing that you're capable of doing, you'll realize that every time you got your feelings hurt up until that point, there was an option that was available to you that was sort of functionally not available to you because you weren't aware of. You'll recognize, in fact, that there are aspects of your mind that are absolutely in the market to get a hurt feeling. Because that hurt feeling, although you might not like it, it is serving some purpose. It is giving your mind something to think about, talk about. It's making your mind feel very real. And the mind craves drama. It craves these ups and downs. And when the mind's in control, it's kind of like letting a little 3 or 4 year old child choose the dinner. And it's going to be candy all the time or ice cream all the time or whatever. And the presence of awareness just goes, we don't really need that right now. It gives you the opportunity to say in your mind when a feeling comes up or when a story activates or an old pattern of meaning assignment. Let's say that you're in a relationship with someone and that person abruptly calls off the relationship, right? What would you normally do? How would you normally feel, right? What sort of stories would automatically get told and would be automatically accepted as truth, and what meanings would be assigned about how old you are, how many times this has happened before, what this means about your value and your worth, and you weren't this enough, and so that's the reason. So you go down that slide of emotions and downward spiral of time and energy wasting. But if you're really aware in that moment, you'll say, wow, this is interesting. I see exactly the invitation that this life situation is offering to me. I see the stories that are available to me to tell myself, and I see the meanings that I could assign to this situation. And you don't resist those things, and you don't willpower. I'm not going to tell myself those stories. It's not like that. You're just so acutely aware that storytelling is storytelling, and it's something you have to do. You're so acutely aware of meaning assignment as that's a mental activity in which I have to engage. You're aware of it. I have to go out of my way to do this. I have to tell myself that it means this in order to feel all of those different feelings. You become so acutely aware of the fact that what used to be. So here's just a general rule to illustrate what I'm saying. Unconscious mental behavior and the consequences of unconscious mental activity feel like reality. So if I unconsciously and automatically tell myself a crappy story about what it means that my relationship is ending, right? That's not going to feel like a story. The emotions that come up as a consequence of telling myself that story, it doesn't feel like a story. It feels like reality. But if I'm aware of the fact that storytelling is going on, if I'm aware of the fact that I'm assigning these meanings, then I'll say, this is an activity in which I'm engaging. This is not what reality feels like. This is what the mental activity that's going on within my mind feels like. Already, I'm starting to free myself from that. And so this is the nice thing about this is that it's not like, let's say, for instance, that you join some kind of personal growth school, and the whole premise is your feelings are the most important thing in the world, and your feelings tell you secret, magical universe information about what's true, and if you feel this way, you've got to honor it, and you have to express it, and you have to this, and you have to that, and you have to worship your feelings, basically. So that's one school, right? And alternatively, let's say that you get fed up with that when you go to another school, and the other school says your feelings are evil, your feelings are deceptive, you can't trust your feelings, you have no right to feel that way, you're wrong for feeling that way, you deserve to be treated the way that makes you deserve to feel that way, whatever, right? Two different schools, right? Both based on belief. See, I have to tell you your feelings are wonderful and they're important and they're reliable, or I have to tell you, right, that your feelings aren't reliable, just ignore them, do the reasonable thing. And you consent to those beliefs, you accept them, and then your mind operates on the basis of them. Awareness is a completely different thing, where you sit up above here and you start to recognize beliefs for what they are, and you observe the belief as it operates in your experience. You observe the idea. You go, okay, my mind now is really into this idea that my feelings have to be honored. And it also has a whole bunch of stuff about what honoring the feeling means. For instance, it means thinking a whole bunch of the thoughts that caused the feeling to occur in the first place. It means interpreting situations in ways that allow me to feel that. There's all sorts of sneaky stuff that goes on that only you can discover, and that you can only discover as a result of becoming aware. If I just sit here and tell you that, it does you no good, because that's mind-to-mind communication, right? But as you develop your capacity to see what's going on within yourself and to recognize what's going on for what it is, you're sort of the only person in the world that can really accurately observe what's going on in your mind. So if you're not observing it, it's not being observed. And if it's not being observed, I can guarantee you there's some shenanigans that are going on. But if you take my word for it, if I say, listen, your mind is sick and it's causing you all kinds of problems and making you a nasty person, and you believe me, it's going to do you no good. But if you become aware and you discover that for yourself, even if it's the same truth, the discovery is positively transformational in a way that it could never be if you just took my word for it or accepted it on the basis of belief. And so awareness it's kind of like developing the ability to it's like heightening your internal visual acuity, so that when you observe what's going on inside, it's crisp, it's clear, it's super high resolution. You see not only what's happening, you don't just see that thought, you don't just see that feeling or see the image that's occurring, or you don't just know that there's a story happening inside you. You see the storytelling and you recognize it for exactly what it is. Here's my mind seizing on this opportunity to create this unpleasant feeling. You'll discover, for instance, that there are little parts of you that celebrate getting your feelings hurt. You'll discover that there are little parts of you that absolutely love it when those things that you claim to not want to happen are actually happening. Now, again, that's not something for you to believe or disbelieve. That's something for you to become sufficiently aware that you'll know whether or not it's going on within you. I mean, especially relationship problems. I mean, this is like, we have several times, we'll often have couples in awareness school, you can take it together. And, what your mind is actually calibrated to create and what your mind as a whole craves from the relationship is oftentimes completely different and incompatible with what you at a conscious level claim to want. So I would suggest that your mind as a whole craves exactly whatever it is that you're getting in your relationship right now. Yeah. And if there's a difference between what you're getting in your relationship and what you think you want consciously in the relationship, awareness is something that will allow you to kind of resolve the what would you say? What was that? Resolve the divergence that exists between those things. Nobody's capable of having a happy, fulfilled, peaceful life that makes sense to them if they are partly estranged from themselves. And what is unawareness of what's going on within one's own mind other than self-estrangement? So again, as you come to know yourself more fully, you come to understand what's going on out here, what's going on in here, what's going on in here more. And as you understand it all from that kind of 30,000 foot level, you become sane in a way that allows you to intervene in ways that actually make the situation better. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of really feeling like you want to make it better and really making a best effort to make it better, whether it's interpersonal or intrapersonal, try to change some area of your life and the effort just end up making it worse. Usually, if you're sufficiently aware, you will recognize those faulty attempts to say, in German, there's a term, it's called Schlimmbesserung, which is basically, it's a bad improvement. So something's supposed to make it better, but it actually makes it worse. And a lot of personal growth interventions, a lot of things that people try to do to make, let's join this thing, let's do this thing, let's have a talk about it. These are examples of Schlimmbesserung. So it's something that's supposed to make it better and it makes it actually quite a bit worse. Apple software does this fairly frequently. Awareness prevents that from happening because you have enough information to intervene usefully.
Yeah. Does letting go / changing the mind resolve GNM conflict? So the awareness process allows you to see, like, I know when I'm in a conflict, stuff still happens, unexpected things still happen and catch you off guard, or, you step on a track and it still can activate your adaptations, according to German medicine. However, awareness allows me to see whether I'm feeding into it or I can resolve it and get off the track. Because when you have these unconscious processes, especially if there's parts of you that are committed to the identity of the self-devaluation, of the, this identity you formed as a result of the separation conflict, the territory conflict, the sexual conflict, like you've got to see, so like the mind kind of co-ops these conflicts that we've developed, these, legit biological caught off guard, program that gets activated. But then the mind, like Steve mentioned before, it loves the drama. And so the mind kind of will build this whole apparatus for keeping this story around, despite, I want to get rid of it. I want to get rid of this problem. And so the awareness process is going to help you to see, this work, along with the knowledge of the biological programs, is amazing simply because I can see when I'm feeding into it, when I'm feeding into the self-devaluation or this or that story. And I can see the physical differences in terms of symptoms, if I lean into the conflict and the story associated with the conflict, especially when it comes to chronic stuff, like acute stuff, caught off guard, didn't expect that. Your resilience and your ability to shorten the period of time that you're in conflict, I find is tremendous when you have greater awareness. So it's not about preventing ever having a conflict. It's about, what am I doing before conflict experiences happen? What do I do when it happens? What do I do in the wake of it having happened? The biggest benefit to this, though, is with those chronic ongoing things that, like the health issue now is just a part of your personality, and watching the unconscious ways that your mind is kind of married to this, this hurt feeling story, the sad story, the separation story, the problem. And so, yes, it's extremely helpful, but it's not simply changing your mind gets rid of the conflict or letting go of this. It's very, it's seeing the complex interweaving of the psyche and the biology along with like the mind and its desire to feel real. Because what's realer than a physical symptom? What's realer than this problem that I have, and the way that we romanticize and enhance our problems, to see that with this non-judgmental, just like clear conscious awareness, and to say, I think that my mind is engaging in that. I think that that's the reason that I haven't been able to break out of this cycle yet, because there's some kind of payoff, there's some kind of benefit, there's some kind of, I say that I hate it, but a part of me loves it. That's like one of the hugest things to start realizing. What do I say that I hate, that I want to be gone, I want this out of my life, more than anything? And this is the sneaky thing, especially the things that you want desperately. The thing I most desperately want to change or to get rid of or to acquire, and that I've pedestalized, and I say, if only this was, my conflict would be gone, my life would be better, if only this thing. And if you don't see that for the biggest trap, the biggest red flag, if all the alarm bells in your mind aren't going, hey, this area is rife with patterns that are going to keep you this far from what you want, in this amount of angst, in this amount of despair, because you're calibrated to exactly that. Again, whatever you're getting, you're programmed to be getting that. And awareness helps you to see that.
Would you say that the awareness work creates an environment sort of optimally calibrated for conflict resolution?
Yes.
It creates an environment where conflict resolution is probably more likely to occur, because you're just more aware of what's going on inside your head. I mean, one of the best things I think that can happen is that you become a person. So kind of this phrase, I like the idea of being above anything. Like people say, you're above that. You're above that kind of humor. You're above that kind of sharing that kind of meme or whatever. It's like, I like the idea of being above anything. Like being above anything is beneath me. And in the same way, like you get over the idea that you shouldn't have conflicts. You get over that, and you develop, basically, the thing is, the part of you that's capable of being conflicted about something going wrong in life, or conflicted because something shocking occurs, that part's always going to have the ability to be conflicted in that way. Like that, you're going to be capable of experiencing a conflict. The awareness work is about developing a part of yourself that is willing and able to respond resourcefully to the fact that you are, in some regards, this biological being, if you want to say animal, who has the ability to perceive and experience and react to life in those ways. So it's not about, so the mind hears this message and it goes, okay, so if I become aware enough, then this stuff won't happen to me anymore. And then I'll really be on top of it. I'll be ahead of everyone else. I'll be really better positioned. But the reality of how it actually works is that you recognize and become okay with the reality of who and what you are, and there's this acceptance, and then that unlocks a capacity to respond resourcefully to that stuff, so that there is no achievement, there's no identity associated with it. There is no, people sometimes, G&M coaches will be kind of sheepish about the fact that they experience a conflict that they aren't able to resolve. And I'm like, okay, so this is, sometimes I'll be working with these people, and the idea is, listen, why are you worried about that? Doesn't that show that the mind has seized upon this, and it's got an identity, said that I'm supposed to know how to do this stuff. And awareness never does that. Awareness doesn't prize knowing. It's only interested in learning. It's only interested in responding. There's just no identity element to it. So you can see as you tap into, so here's something people do. Like, let's say there's a part of you that's all hung up on the fact that you don't have a good relationship with your sibling or with your child or whatever. And maybe there's a conflict associated with that. It's all hung up on it, right? The mental reaction to that, the mind's response is to go, let go of that, let go of it, right? The mind won't let go of the desire to force this other part of the mind to let go of its desire to have something be other than it is. And that's kind of like tying a real hard knot in order to untie another knot. And really what awareness does is it gets you to a place where you let it be okay that there's a part of you that can't let go of it. So the mind tries to fix something wrong with the mind by having the same thing be wrong with it. Right? It tries to untie a knot by tying a knot. And if awareness wants a knot untied, it starts by not tying a knot itself, kind of first do no harm concept. Awareness starts by saying, okay, this part's all tightened up. This part's all in knots about this. The first most important thing I can do is not tighten up and knot myself up over the fact that this other part of me. Have you ever done this? Been around someone who was stressed out and you wanted them to calm down, and when they didn't immediately calm down, your response to that was to get stressed out too? That's a very mechanical mental reaction. That's what I resist persists, perpetuation and exacerbation of the thing resisted usually. Awareness is where you kind of float up to the level that goes, it's sort of trite, but like it begins with me. And awareness is the only part of you that actually says this begins with me, because the mind will do this with itself. The personal growth part of the mind will look at the petty revenge wanting part of the mind, and it will go, that part needs to be different. That part, you need to change, right? Awareness never does that. Awareness goes, okay, listen, I'm observing that there's a petty part and that there's a personal growth part and that they're in opposition to one another. The first most important thing I can do is to not contribute to this futile internal opposition that exists. Let me begin by accepting the fact that at this moment we have some kind of silly. Now, it's very difficult to do that if you're attached to an image of yourself as an enlightened kind of wonderful person. See how we've segued into lesson? We've segued away from awareness school. This is exactly how the meetings go. So if you like this, then great. And if not, sorry about that. And so that's really kind of how that works. And so it's sort of just changing the mind resolve the conflict. It certainly, we need to know what you mean by resolving the conflict. We need to know what you mean by changing the mind. For me, it's about creating the environment. Someone just recently messaged me and was explaining to me that they resolved kind of a long-standing conflict that they had. And what was interesting was they described the resolution as it occurred in exactly the way GNM would say it would occur, which was that the person was reading about another person who had a conflict similar to theirs. And as they were reading this story, so the situation wasn't the same, but the conflict was the same. They had a flash of an event that occurred several months ago or whatever. And in that instant, there was a shift and they immediately started feeling completely different. Energy level went from I think it was like 30% to 70%. It was like an instantaneous change, right? Woof, Now the question is, if that person had not been doing the mindset work that I know they had been doing at that point, would reading that story have facilitated that realization? So awareness for me is about creating that environment that's maximally conducive, we'll say, to the percolation of useful insight. Mm-hmm. We want to create an environment that invites insight. So there's probably, would you say, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this, but I'm pretty confident that this statement is absolutely true, that conflict resolution consists of meaningful insight.
Yeah.
An insight about the cause and nature of my symptom, an insight about the situation to which the symptom is connected, an insight about what the situation meant to you in that moment, an insight about why the situation was a conflict-inducing thing in the first place. And so awareness really is the thing that you can do at a very high level to maximally facilitate insight. You create an environment that is rife for insight. And so in that regard, it certainly is a very solid foundation for resolving conflicts. I'll also say people can sometimes get neurotic about GNM stuff. Is it this? Is it that? And that's basically the mind seizes upon the GNM model, and the mind starts trying to analyze its way to resolution, which is a conflict-inducing you could feel it. If you're up at night with night sweats because you can't figure out why you were up at night with night sweats the night before, it's like, okay, so we're piling problems onto problems. When awareness is present, if you begin to, let's say, use the GNM model against yourself, or use what you don't know against yourself, right? Awareness will instantly recognize that, and it'll go, this isn't useful, and you can drop it. Now, the nice thing is, see, because sometimes people will get mad at GNM, and they'll go, well, I studied GNM for a while, and I spent more time being upset than I did ever before that, and all this different stuff. And that to me is kind of like, I don't like forks. I got a fork and I stuck it in my eyeball and it hurt a lot. And it's kind of like, well, respectfully, I'm sorry about your eye. But at the same time, maybe it wasn't the fork. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe it was this motion, So we have a concept called grab the handle, not the blade. The basic idea there is that, let's say that the model is a tool, and if I grab the business end of the model, the sharp end of the model, if I use it against me, if there's a user error that causes the harm, I don't want to blame the model. One, because the model might potentially be useful, but two, because I don't understand the nature of the self-harm that just occurred, and I'm then likely going to repeat it with something else. So with awareness, I'll be less likely to inadvertently misuse the GNM model, and in the event that my mind does seize hold of it and begin to use it against me, which it probably will do, I will be aware of the cause and nature of my discomfort. I will say that activity, the manner in which my mind is using this GNM model is not useful. And not only is it not useful, it's not useful in exactly the same way the stuff that my mind does with what I learn tends to be across the board. Oh, focusing on what I want is good. Okay, so now I'm going to feel bad about focusing on what I don't want. Oh, being nice to my children is good. So now I'm going to feel like a terrible mother if I lose my temper with them. Oh, communication with my partner is good. My husband doesn't want to talk to me right now, so I'm going to emotionally resist that and turn that into a huge deal. See how the mind will seize upon what may in fact be a pretty good idea and sort of corrupt it so as that you can cause harm to yourself and create what you don't want in the world. With awareness, you'll see that process unfolding, recognize it for what it is, and simply drop it. And so it really, awareness for me is, one of the things is, it allows you to fully express the native intelligence that is the real you, because it frees you from pre-existing commitments to stupid ideas and pattern of action that have nothing to do with you and that are mechanical, but that you maybe are unconsciously compelled to engage in. It's not that you need to be more intelligent, it's that you need to be less beholden to dumb patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting so that your natural intelligence can kind of come out. You might think about your commitments to dumb patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Mechanical thinking, right, is like asphalt or pavement. And like right now, you've got all this big slab of, I don't know, but let's say big slab of pavement here, and you got a couple of cracks here and there where a little piece of grass can come out. I'm always amazed at how grass and plants can kind of come up through this stuff. That's your natural intelligence expressing itself through this just stone wall of just nonsense that you're unconsciously committed to. And awareness sort of comes through. It's like a jackhammer and breaks up all that crap and just pushes it aside. And then you have a field of green. And so it's not that you don't have this wonderful, natural knowing inside. It's that a lot of the times it's sort of paved over and suppressed by unexamined pre-existing assumptions and commitments to ideas and meaning assignment and identities and all this different stuff. And really what we're doing is clearing that out so the natural smarts can sort of manifest themselves.
Yeah, if you've never seen, and that's like the beauty of this, is these kind of shocking moments where you see yourself committed to an idea that you thought was just true, thought it was just the way of this or that, and you see it, and you see how that idea is suppressing, corrupting, distorting, and making it so that you can't create the thing that you want to create. And it's like, whoa, okay, I'm shocked by that. And that is like, there's normally the mind likes to seize on that awareness right away and say, oh, you should feel bad about that. That's pretty stupid of you that you didn't notice that. But awareness zooms out again and says, wow, no wonder that all of these things are happening. No wonder I couldn't use that idea, in a way that served me. Like some people do, like come across GNM, they kind of get freaked out, or they're just like, oh, and then they go do other things for a while, and then they come back to it and they're just like, oh, the commitment I had to certain ideas, unconscious things, made it so that I couldn't even use this. And it was this cement block, and I couldn't access the helpfulness of the model. And then once that's gone, or once you've got a couple cracks in it and some light can shine through, it's like, oh, I don't have to be identified with that anymore. And that's the freedom, is all the things you don't have to be identified with anymore, all of these ideas about yourself. It really is this just like releasing you from these shackles, from this prison, from these handcuffs that have kept you stuck in a certain idea about yourself that you've had probably since before you were 7. And it's like, oh, none of that has to hold me back anymore, because I can see it, and how can I take useful ideas and discard unuseful ideas without having to identify with either having been clung to those ideas for a while, because that's what gets really difficult and gets really like people have a hard time letting certain ideas about themselves go. It's the identities that are so sticky, because the mind loves every identity because it gives it a sense of realness, of solidity, and it's like, oh, will I just disappear? And so the more that you kind of demolish it all, be confident and brave enough to like knock it all down, every idea, every identity, everything that you have built your concept of self on, and say, you know what? I can start from scratch. I can start over. It's like this reinvention that's so freeing and it's so fun. And then let me see, build something new that may actually be worth experiencing rather than the prison that I was in before.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the mind wants you to identify with mental activity. So I don't know if you've ever had a thought or felt a feeling, or engaged in a behavior, let's say, and then like, your conscience or whatever, you look at it and you're just horrified. I mean, I think probably this is something parents find relatable, right? Is that it can be fairly stressful to deal with children under certain circumstances, especially if you have other things going on in your life. And every once in a while you have a thought just kind of flash across your mind and you just feel so guilty about it. Or, you feel so bad, like you're just so annoyed something that your child is doing or whatever. And then you feel bad. Or, I don't know, maybe your spouse or your partner wants you to do something and you feel like you should want to do it. There's your mind right there causing you problems, by the way. But then you don't, and then you feel guilty. Not only do you not want to do it, and that's a pain in the ass, but then you also feel guilty about the fact that you don't want to do it. So the mind loves to just do this awful stuff to you. It just creates this tension inside. Why? It's a mistake to identify with any mental activity, whether it's nice or whether it isn't. And like as you're not free as an individual if you don't have the ability for a thought to pop into your mind without identifying with it. Now, it can be a wonderful thought about a nice thing that you could do for somebody, or it could be a genius idea about how to make a product or improve on something, or it can be a very uncharitable, unkind thought. But what observe the part of you that wants to seize upon and identify with the thought that just occurred, or with the feeling that was present, right? Pay attention to the part that wants you to identify. Notice its presence. Question that. Because if you're not questioning that, that's the driving force of your life. It's not even what you're identified with. It's the part that goes, oh my God, that's you. Oh my God, how could you think that? Oh my God, what does that say about you? Oh my God, look at that. You must be awful. Oh, you must be great. Oh, what are they thinking? That's the part that tells you to identify is far more important than is anything with which you might identify. Let's say you didn't graduate from high school, right? That's something maybe the person might be identified with, right? What part? How do you know to identify with that? What part of you says fixate on that thing in your personal history and let that tell you who you are? So observe the part that says, "Well, my mother is mad at me. My children don't want to talk to me right now," and it wants you to identify with that. It wants you to say, "That's me. That's what's true about me." That's it right there. Observe the part that has this compulsive identification desire, right? And if you start paying attention to that, your life would just that alone would change your life. So, as this really, and this is something that you said too, it's accessing a part of yourself that always has permission to be smart, because so many people don't have permission to be smart ever. Right? And a lot of people have a conditional permission to be smart. They're allowed to be intelligent when it comes to money, but not relationships. Or they're allowed to be intelligent in a relationship as long as their partner is happy with them. But if their partner is unhappy with them, they have to start doing dumb things that don't work, things that they know they won't work, right? And there is a part of you, though, that sits above all your beliefs and all your commitments and all the meanings that you've assigned and assumptions that you've accepted and all this different stuff. Sits above all the stories that you've ever told yourself or that anyone has ever told you about the nature of reality. I'm sure that you at various points in your life have been told many stories about cosmology and about humanity and about values and about religion and all of this. Well, there's a part of you that pre-existed all of those stories and it sits up top of all of those stories and is therefore utterly unconstrained by any of those stories, utterly untouched and utterly unformed by those stories. That's awareness. So as you develop the ability to go to that place where it's just you observing what's going on, without commentary, without any framework. And that's one of the things too, the value of the Ever Better Life course is it's a framework that confesses to you its identity as a framework, its limitations as a framework. I come right out to you and I say, this is a framework. We come right out to you and say, this is just made up. I'm telling you something, everything that everybody has ever told you at any point in your life has been just made up, right? But most of the time people don't acknowledge it. So we just say to you, hey, look, this is something that's just made up and it's designed to help you create freedom. But remember, it's just made up. It's just the means of developing your awareness. You go in and you see how the model works and you see, you see how it's just made up and how it's useful and how when you use it. And a lot of the times people go through the Ever Better Life course and frankly, they use it in ways that make themselves feel bad. And this is, and that's not like, it's, at one level, it's a mistake. At one level, it's a problem. At one level, it's an error. But at the higher level, it says, okay, let's use this as an opportunity to learn about ourselves. How you relate to this course is how you relate to life. Don't you understand? How you relate to these principles is how you relate to your relationships. It's how you relate to everything. People will literally go through a module that's all about how it's more useful to focus on what you want than on what you don't want. And then they will focus on how they don't want to focus on what they don't want. They'll focus on how they don't want to fail to get through that module. They'll focus on how they don't want us to get upset with them, how they don't want to waste their money, and how they don't want to not be prepared for the course. They don't want to ask, or for the class meeting, they don't want to ask a dumb question. So even when they're engaging in learning about focusing on what they do want, they're chronically and unintentionally focused on what they don't want. Now, if they can see that and just sort of laugh about it instead of getting all upset and emotionally resisting it, right? So awareness will correct unresourceful activity. The mind wants to emotionally resist it, cling to it, identify with it, and suffer over it. If you want to know what part of you is in control at a given moment in time, look at what you're looking at and look at how you're inclined to respond to it. Do I want to learn from this? Do I want to look for an opportunity to improve this, right? Do I want to say to myself, okay, given this, what do I want? See? Okay, acceptance of the present moment. Given this, what do I want? It's kind of like taking acceptance and turning it into, okay, this is where we're starting. That's fine. Where are we going to go now? Okay, we're in California. We want to go to Montana. Where is that? You know what I'm saying? Whereas the mind wants to lament the fact that you're in California. The mind wants to, rather than using now as a springboard to next, the mind wants to cry a puddle of tears about now, or feel a boatload of guilt and shame and blame. It wants to, and it just, what am I doing? Am I trying to learn and am I trying to improve, or am I trying to resist, suffer over, justify, and identify with? That'll tell you whether awareness is in the driver's seat or whether it's mechanical thinking. Even becoming aware of what force is running your life at a given moment in time is a tremendous start.
What if conflicts are stacked upon each other?
Unstack them. It's just like anything else. If you've got one magazine sitting on the table, pick it up and put it where you want it to go. If you got 50, you have to be a little bit more careful. Maybe you take them from the top. If you've got a certain level of skill, you might be able to whip one out from the middle. But it's, again, that's what I would call that a very mental question. Depending on where you're coming from. I don't know this. I don't know what drove that question. That could be a very mental question, we'll say. So one of the things that the mind likes to do is it likes to ask questions about its problem that are designed to compound its problem. Yeah. And, that's just a thing the mind does. And the mind would also, if you do that, if your mind does that, the mind would very much like for you to identify with that tendency, which would then not be useful. It's just observing it. And the other thing too is this idea that you have to intellectually know how to do it in order to do it. That's a arbitrarily imposed mental limitation. Again, if you develop the framework of so think of it like this. If you got a swimming pool and it's kind of overgrown with algae, you know about this? Like sometimes the pool gets a little kind of off kilter and it turns green or whatever. Do you have to know every single individual particle of algae, type of algae? Do you have to know okay, there's one and there's an atom of it over here in order to begin? It's like, no, you want to have a general idea of what's in there. And you want to have a general idea about what is it that's making the environment called this pool so conducive to the overgrowth of this stuff. And then you want to start introducing something that will kind of counterbalance it. Let's make the environment of the pool inconsistent with this kind of overgrowth. Do that with your mind. Mm-hmm. And awareness is the thing that you put into the mental pool in order to make it less hospitable to unwanted overgrowth. It's awareness. Introduce that in. Introduce the awareness in and trust that part of you will initiate the conflict resolution process in the appropriate order. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't ever sit down and think, okay, I think I have this, I think I have this, and I think I have this. But if you're stressed out as you're doing that, or if you're frantic as you're doing that, we need to put the mind in its place. There needs to be more awareness as a prerequisite for resourceful mental action. So to the extent that conflict resolution is a mental process, an analytical process, a talk therapy process, right? There needs to be sufficient awareness present to make sure that those mental processes don't get out of hand, don't function in a way that's counterproductive. So, I mean, if a person is laden with conflicts, in my opinion, the very first thing that person needs to do is to develop the ability, the posture, the overall relationship to what is and to themselves, and what is as conflicts, and themselves as a person who at this time has a lot of conflicts. They need to figure out a way to let that be okay. Now watch this. If you've got a conflict and your whole thing is, I got to fix this conflict now, and then I'll learn how to let whatever happens be okay. It's a very conflicty attitude. It starts now. The resourceful thinking at a general 30,000 foot level begins now. It says, okay, I have reason to believe I think I might have a huge stack of conflicts. Let me just begin by, I'm going to leave that big stack of conflicts alone, because I know at this moment I might not yet be capable, I might not yet be willing, maybe it's unconscious unwillingness, to approach the project of unstacking that stack of conflicts resourcefully. First, do no harm, right? So I'm going to then say to myself, let me make sure that every engagement with the fact that I have a big stack of conflicts is coming from an assumption that this condition is okay, an acceptance of the fact that this is what I'm dealing with. Now, when I really say, I want to approach this in the right posture, is the same person who got conflicted attempting to resolve the conflict? Because that person creates conflicts. That person gets conflicted. Before I start to resolve the conflicts that I got, or I had, or I experienced, right? I have to become a different person. I need to become I need to become a resolver, right? Before I attempt to resolve. Because if I attempt to resolve as a conflicted person, or as a conflictor, or as someone for whom conflict is kind of in their nature, my attempts to resolve will create new conflicts. And so any impulsive intervention is wrong. Guaranteed 100%. That's the mind saying, you don't have time to check to see if what you're doing right now is resourceful. You just need to do it. Like, unless you're on fire, unless there's a child that's drowning, unless there's a car that's rolling down a hill, unless there's a bear that's chasing you, that's baloney. And it should be very suspicious. Become aware of the part that speaks to you that way. Watch for impulsive interventions to any, I mean, this applies to conflict resolution. This applies to just everyday kind of mind stuff. I have to stop being anxious. You feel the anxiety? It's not okay that I'm as negative as I am. That's negative. There's negative energy right there. And so just really practice cultivating a sense, not even a sense of okayness, an awareness of just the reality of okayness that exists in your present condition, and move forward from that as you begin to do work upon the condition.
Yeah. Sometimes the audio is weird. Why is your voice sounding robotic and very low?
It's just how I talk.
Resourceful thinking is greater than rumination. Yes. Do you think therapy is helpful for self-awareness? Well, we've had some therapists and people who've done a lot of therapy in awareness school and have found developing the skill of awareness more helpful than maybe what, traditional therapy is, of talking about the problem versus zooming out and seeing all of the components that are going into the experiences that you're having. So, therapy is
one of those things. I don't even know what that is, because there's just so many. It's like chiropractic. We both went to chiropractic school, and I had no idea before going to chiropractic school. If someone says they're a chiropractor, it kind of doesn't tell you anything about what they actually do, because there are so many different types of chiropractic, and chiropractors do so many different things. So I could. What's going on with this now?
What did I do? I don't know what I did. I have no idea why it's red now.
Like the blood red filter.
What have I done?
It's hard to say. Now, there certainly, in my opinion, there are a lot of things that go on under the title therapy that are not useful. But I don't know I also know that there are, I think, a number of very skilled people helpers who describe themselves as therapists. So it's kind of hard to say either way. In general, though, I think awareness will help a person to get more out of therapy. We're gonna just settle for it.
Veronica's laughing. Leave the red. It's amazing. Okay, well, we're going to leave it because I don't know how I did it and I don't know how to undo it. But perhaps this is a good time to wrap it up. It's been great.
Oh, really?
We haven't had our lunch yet, so I am looking forward to having lunch. So thank you guys for being here. This is, if you like these types of chats, you will love Awareness School. It's very fun. We start 2 weeks from Tuesday, and feel free if you have any other questions. The early bird enrollment goes through next Friday. So you have, just under a week to get the early bird discount, and yeah, we'd love to see you there. Bye.
See ya.